Hey, how you doing? I de-identified your email, and so I tried to put together what I think were some of the highlights, but this is just a discussion that you and I can have. So if I miss the mark, let me know. But there's several different places we can go to approach this, and there's several different angles that we could approach. And even if we were talking about one thing that feels isolated, like student loan forgiveness kind of stands on its own, we could tie that in, or you could tie it in with the rhetoric of your writing and things like that. So let me show you some different approaches. So from the library homepage, if we know the name of databases that we could go to, that would be a great place to start. I have my guide. So I'm going to go to that. That has a listing of databases. Social work. I'll go to PhD and master's help. So one of the first things that we can do is we could validate keywords. So validating keywords essentially is like going in and seeing, are there existing programs for graduate students? What do they call those? Does it have like a specific name? You could just do that out on Google, or you could look in the Department of Education. Actually, let's do that. We'll just go out to the Department of Education. So there's a lot of different things going on in the Department of Ed. Even though it's federal, the federal support trickles down to smaller grassroots programs in colleges, schools, and programs everywhere. So if we looked at social work, so I put it in quotes so those two terms stick together, and graduate students, I haven't done this search before. There could be nothing. Oh yeah, so here's what we have. So there's internships, there's graduate and first professional, and see, sometimes they get mixed up with other things. So cruise through these and look at there. These groups share the common characteristic of. So it might be a culture of graduate students, but you can get some ideas of keywords that would be tied into what does support for graduate students look like. You could also take out, or then there's other issues too, like student debt, student loans. But you could go in, graduate student, and what's going on with support. Ah, there's the CARES Act. So there's different kind of emergency funding. There's supporting students who are experiencing trauma. There's grants, all sorts of different things that you can go through. So opportunities for underrepresented groups. So this might be a good place to start. But we're just kind of validating concepts and keywords. So the one thing, is there support for graduate students already? Is there support for graduate students on their own, or is there support for graduate students in social work? Some of those ideas you could just cruise the web and see what's out there. Department of Education is a good authoritative source since they support a lot of colleges and programs all over. You could do mental health, student loan forgiveness. You could look for all of those things in some of these other resources as well. So CQ Researcher, this is something where you could investigate ideas. Whoop, if I could spell forgiveness. I'm showing evidence that I don't forgive very often. So you could look for college costs, student loans, student loan forgiveness programs. So this is a database that's not scholarly. This is kind of a journalist's database that gives you quick reports on different concepts that are going on. So you could get some background information from this. And you could get some great data, like 45 million Americans owe 1.7 trillion in college loans. So it's got some, you can see what this is be for like newspapers, websites, and things like that. Like that guy's jacket. I'm all checking out people's jackets now. So you get the idea. The background search is where you would start to fill in some of these keywords with different concepts and other things that you can look for. And you have some already: education, compensation, burnout. So once you've looked at some of the background info, you're not citing any of this necessarily, you're just looking for ideas behind it. Then you can go into discipline-specific research. And I would say a big one to start with would be this education full text. Before we get into social work specifically, because education full text is scholarship not only about teaching and pedagogy and curriculum, but it's also about education administration. It's also about grant funding, public policy, higher education, and things like that. So we could do graduate students, and then you could do and any one of those concepts. So mental health. Well, let me show you a search that you could do. You could do this in advanced search as well. But if you put something in parentheses, so I don't know if it's mental health or burnout. I can catch, so on either side of the and is a concept. So one, I'm looking at a population, graduate students. And on the other side, I'm looking at mental health or burnout. And that's two concepts that I'm looking for. And I'm just looking in peer-reviewed articles. And I'm not looking at social work yet, because that might get too narrow. But arguably, the stresses that graduate students experience in one college, they would experience in another. That's something to consider. So if you just put in social work, that might narrow it down too far. So for example, we have 183, but if we put it in the context of social work explicitly, what percentage are we going to lose? So we go from 183 down to 21. That's a huge amount. So I would say, I mean, that's good that we can focus on these, but when you're first starting your searches, stay open to the experiences of all graduate students as a population before you get into the nitty-gritty of specific disciplines. So education full text is great. What's another one we could look at? Oh yeah, you could do that. Compensation. Compensation or stipend. What's the name of the concept? I was like paycheck. They usually call it a stipend. So here's some of the ideas that you could work with. Oh, look at that. Social work degrees and it's like finding itself. So that database is going to be really good. But let's change databases. So you know that this is going to be a good one to go into. But let's change databases and see what we can find with that. So this one's all education all the time. But what happens if we go into a social work or a social services database? Are we going to get the same results? There's going to be a little bit of overlap. But this one's going to be looking at specifically social services disciplines. I wonder if I broke it by not putting it into, 753. Oh, the stipend, student commitment to child welfare. So some of these might be public initiatives unrelated to graduate students. How annoying is that? So you might have to cruise through. Look at that, stipend program for MSW students. I thought it would be too narrow. Shut my mouth. So these would be good to look at. Sociological abstracts, I adore. Psych info, that one's going to be not as good. It's worthwhile looking at it. Another one that I think would be really good is PAIS. This is public policy databases. So this is like political science majors and econ majors. So let's look at, I want to put this on here. So these are the groups that alter or enhance or decrease certain policies that the Department of Education implements and measures success of. So what would happen if we did that? Then all of a sudden we're going to be getting politicians saying, well, then we'll get professional students. Look at that. So the lived experience of women graduate students. So PAIS is going to be really good. Looks like it's going to be a lot of first-hand accounts too. That's really cool. Oh, I didn't think of benefits. There's another keyword. As you go, more benefits. So these ones, this one, and this one, I would recommend those would be the best places to start. But what would we do if we wanted to sweep everything into one massive search to focus what we wanted? And so we want compensation or stipend or benefits that deal with burnout or mental health or student loan forgiveness. So this is kind of like I'm throwing it all in there. Compensation, burnout. So what happens when we look at stuff like that? And MSW or social work. What happens if we do a search that's huge, that covers everything in one go? I don't know. Let's take a look. Let's go to a big generic database, the library catalog. Let's see if it chokes on this. And let's see, I want to just look at, I just want to look at the catalog. Because they have articles indexed in the catalog. Not all of them, but some of them. What am I going to get? Still 12,000 results. Oh, but I want articles. So there's only 7,000 articles. And I want stuff that is from newer than 1920. Let's say 2015. Since there's 7,000, there must be a lot written in this last 5 years. Look at that. Oh, self-care. I didn't think about that one. No. And what else can we narrow it down to? Here's some of these databases that we're looking at. English. Oh, so shut my mouth. Maybe that is a good enough search. Here's one last database that I want to show you. Under databases, there's one called Scopus. So if there's a lot on our topic, we can reliably go into Scopus. So this is like the top tier research. So there's some journals that don't have a lot of impact. These are the only journals that have a lot of impact. And this is all the disciplines, not just social work. This has STEM, humanities, everything. Let's do my big search. There's only 3. Maybe you should try cognitive behavior. Are you stressed being a grad student? Maybe you should try some CBT. That'll take care of that. So that would go into the self-care. Why did that not work? Why was there 7,000 in the library catalog, but there's only 3 in Scopus? Let's get rid of MSW or social work. Oh, there's 50. So in this one, what you can do is see the number of times that something has been cited by highest. And then you can see, oh, look at that. It's just like self-care. So there's mindfulness, mental models, mediation. So you were looking more at like the benefits, not like how to deal with the issues. That's funny. It says, oh, there we go. Reaching graduate students at risk for suicide behavior. That's not what we were looking for at all. Okay. Let me know how it goes. Hopefully this is a helpful starter, but I think you and I will have to negotiate back and forth until you find the things that you're comfortable and feel good getting. So let me know, and I'm happy to stick with you on this one. But it sounds like an awesome topic, because if we want more social workers and we want graduate students to make it through the program, there's going to have to have something that gets us from A to B. Otherwise, if students are too stressed, they're not going to make it to, well, you know what I'm talking about. Preach into the choir here. So, see you later.